Loading. Setting up your meeting for live streaming.
Content is being sent to a third party, it says.
All righty. Let's see. All right, I think we are live now.
Right.
Cool, great. Hello, welcome everyone.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining, and sorry for a bit of a technical problem. They always happen when you least expect them.
Yeah, exactly. Of course, I thought that everything was ready to go, and then it's like, oh, wait, need to load an extra thing. But we're here now, and thank you so much for joining us. So yeah, we'll just go ahead and kind of, some people might be coming in a little bit slowly, but we'll go ahead and get started. I just wanted to go ahead and say welcome to the first She Means Business. Olga and I decided to collaborate on this because I know we both often are talking about women and women in the workplace and different topics that relate to that. And we just mentioned one day to each other that, oh, we both have this interest in talking about this. Why don't we do a series together? And this is where She Means Business kind of exploded and expanded into this idea that we wanted to share it with the world here and create a discussion and a conversation around important topics that we think that are great to bring to everyone. So with that, we'll kind of like introduce ourselves a little bit, and we'll get talking about our first topic, which is imposter syndrome and confidence. So also during this, feel free to comment anything that, if you have any questions or comments regarding to what we're talking about, we would love to hear from you. So please feel free to do that as we go throughout. And
I
yeah,
can see you already commenting with hellos. That's great. So
yeah.
stay in the same space and comment on the content and ask questions.
Yeah, exactly. So with that, I'll just introduce myself and then I'll throw it over to Olga. So I'm Susan. I'm a career coach. I've been a career coach now for 4 or 5 years, and I focus primarily on career change. People who want to do a complete career change and people who are looking to move into just doing something different in their lives, essentially. And yeah, I mean, I think that's good. I'm an open book, so if you have questions about me, feel free to write me or LinkedIn stalk me. But with that, I will throw it over to Olga.
Thanks, Susan. And yes, my name is Olga, and I am a recovering group head of communications, turn full-time coach. At the moment, I have coached for 10 years, off and on as my passion project on top of my corporate job. But for the last year, I have been focusing on what I love the most, coaching people. And I work with corporate middle age audience, and I help them decide the biggest question, what's next, or I help them move on from the situation when they say, I'm stuck, I don't know what to do. It's fascinating, I love it, and obviously I am very passionate about women in the workplace, but I work both with men and women. And we thought also to kick it off to make sure that we do not give an impression that we are the holiest of them all and we've worked with our imposter syndrome and we don't have it. Ha ha ha. You can never get rid of it. That's the bad news. I wanted to start with my personal story. Last week, all of a sudden, I experienced the biggest imposter syndrome episode I've ever felt in the last couple of weeks. I saw a job that I absolutely loved, and I thought, if I'm gonna go back to corporate, this is the job. I really want to go for it. And I had the first interview, and all of a sudden, all this heart palpitation and sort of doubting myself, and I was asked a question, have you done a strategic communications plan? And I froze. And this is what I've been doing last 10 years, but I froze because I have been out of business for a year. So just to show you, it happens to all of us, and we will be talking about strategies, how to overcome it, and I'll be sharing how I did it because I've recently gone through some of the exercises that I share with my clients. Susan, do you have a story to share?
Yeah. Well, I
Or
was
you are the best. You don't have the imposter syndrome.
yeah, I so wish that was true. No, I was just thinking too, it's interesting about your situation that you, during this interview, just talking about a strategy and you froze because this is something you've done so much, you could do it in your sleep. So
Exactly.
it's quite funny that you had this pause in this moment. What were you feeling like as a part of this?
I I felt crap, honestly, and I got sweaty. But then at the same time, I had the self-talk. It's like, come on, Olga, what's going on with you? It's like you can do better.
Mm.
But then the one who says you can do better to the one who froze, like, ooh, yeah. So I was very upset, to be honest. But as someone told me afterwards, maybe it didn't sound like this in the interview. Maybe I didn't come across like this, but it was me judging myself, right? As well.
Why do you think that you reacted in that way?
Well, because I haven't practiced my self-confidence for a while.
Mm.
Thank you for the coaching session, Susan.
I know, like let's really bring it in here. Um, but I think that's the thing is that sometimes when we're not, there's an interesting fact about imposter syndrome, and they actually say that I know that you're a perfectionist. And they actually say this is one of the things that you most often see if someone identifies as a perfectionist, that they're more likely to struggle with imposter syndrome. And I said, hmm,
Here's a
yeah.
hello to all the perfectionists who are listening to us. By the way, if there are some of you there, why don't you identify yourself if you're not that afraid?
I am a perfectionist. I'm here.
Yes.
But
Hello,
yeah,
I am Olga and I'm a perfectionist.
but no, but it was really interesting to read this, that this was almost like a a preconditioned thing, that if you are typically a perfectionist, that you often have more struggles with imposter syndrome, because I think goes back to you thinking you're not doing enough, you can always do better, and yeah, it's that push. And I think that, yeah, going back to, have I felt imposter syndrome? Yeah, very much so. I think that there have been so many different times in my life where I thought, who am I to be in this room speaking up? Or who am I to say, to make my voice heard? Do I really have the skills, qualifications? Um, do I really belong here? And I think that those are really tough things to work through. And I think if you don't, and I think adversely, if you don't work through them, you end up feeling long term like you're an imposter. You feel like you're going to be found out. You feel like you're never good enough, essentially.
Mm.
And I think that's really the basis of I mean, it is kind of the basis of imposter syndrome. Um, I'm kind of curious, when it comes to everyone here, what do you think of when you think of imposter syndrome? What does it look like for you? What's its meaning? How do you see it as being? Because I think we all somewhat have definitions and kind of ideas, and how we've seen it maybe manifest in ourselves or in others around us, even.
Yeah. How do you identify? Oh, that's my imposter syndrome coming in. And I'm reading through some of the comments, so apologies. I put my eyes down every once in a while because I'm reading the comments. And Alexandra, you're saying you've given up on perfectionism. I love it. I mean, want to have whatever you're having. If you can type up like how you've done it, how how were you able to do it? That's really, I think that will be very helpful to all of us. And
Mhm.
because it looks like we're in a good company, there's quite many perfectionists, self-identified perfectionists on on the
Yeah.
chat here.
Yeah, and I think that I think it's hard. For the long time, I was really, really a strong perfectionist. I was very hard on myself that everything had to be perfect. And I do find I'm not quite there yet, but I'm getting better. I try to tell myself perfectionism is a trap. Nobody can be perfect, and that's really nobody. So I try to tell myself it's good, let it go. Like if it's good, let it go because everything can always have tweaks to it, and then I'm working on something and I never produce anything because I'm always worried if it's good enough. So yeah, I'm curious to see also what Alexandra says about how she's letting go of perfectionism. So we'll see.
So the people are coming up with the imposter syndrome, like being a fraud, or the syndrome of knowing I can do it, uh, uh, but not being able to do it. So while you're typing up, Susan, I'm gonna throw in a lighthearted, a fun way of how I work with my own perfectionism and with my clients. In my programs, I work a lot with body because we underestimate the way our body can help us then change our mind. So every once in a while, I ask people to do weird things. Not to think, but to do weird things. And one of them, if I identify a perfectionist, like myself, for example, and I've tried this exercise as well, we call it practice. I ask them, how does your cupboard look like? Especially women. How does your cupboard look like? Where you store your plates and cups and so on? And let me guess, I say they all go in sizes and very sort of the taller glasses at the back and they're like, yeah, why? I say, well, for a week, when you unload your dishwasher, why don't you just stack all of your plates randomly? Horror. Horror in the eyes of the client, and they go, no, I can't do it. And I said, look, the world is not gonna end if you do it. Just entertain me, humor me, do it for a week. And I asked them to sort of to observe themselves, what's going on and so on. Then they come back and they said, you know what, nothing changed. And then that's a good
They just dug around and then took the cup that they were looking for. Yeah.
and and they're not stressed out anymore that that there needs to be a system to stack their plates and so on. And then that gives them freedom to experiment with other perfectionism, bigger issues, at work, and somewhere else. So I guess the challenge to all of the perfectionists out there on the chat, like what is the safe place for you to play around? Is it your cupboard or is it the way you arrange your books on the bookshelf, for example, by size or by color? Or try to not do it for a week and see what happens, and then see how easy it is. I suspect it will be easy for you, and use the same approach for your life perfectionism.
Mm, that's really, yeah, that's really interesting because it's taking you out of your normal life experience and putting yourself in a different view and realizing it's okay. Nothing has, I don't know, completely gone horribly wrong.
Yeah, wow. And Alexander has just given us an answer how she's gotten rid of the perfectionism. She says she lives by a French proverb, better done than not done. Love it.
Mhm.
Yeah. Right. And or 70%, someone is saying 70% is already good enough. And that's absolutely,
Mm,
there's almost never 100%.
yeah, and I think that's the thing. We often have this idea that everything should be at 100% when really nobody can keep 100% all the time. If we think of something simple like our phone is not running at 100% all the time. And we see that as natural because the battery dies. So why do we see ourselves needing to be at 100% all the time?
Yeah,
I think
I like that.
yeah, we
Like,
hold ourselves to impossible standards.
and even in the word, that we use every day to type stuff, we only use 10% of what it's capable to do.
Mm.
But we're all using a different 10%, well, plus minus. And it's okay. We don't need to use the 100%. It needs to be there. We need to know that it's there, but hey, we don't need to use it every day.
Yeah.
Shall we move on and talk about what's the antidote to the imposter syndrome?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think some of the things also too is maybe just to provide a bit more context before we get into it. So people maybe because um, I know that Olga and I hear imposter syndrome a lot. I don't know how exposed you all are to this idea of imposter syndrome and what it is, but it's actually a term that was coined in the 1970s. And it was two psychologists, psychiatrists in the profession that was noticing it in high achieving women. And that's where the term imposter syndrome comes from. It's the first ever documented of this word, imposter syndrome. It's the 1970s. These professionals were seeing that high achieving women they were speaking with were constantly afraid they were going to be found out, that they were going to be, the truth was going to come to light, that they weren't good enough at their jobs or they weren't doing enough or that they weren't competent enough for what they were doing. And it's interesting that the roots were in high achieving women as opposed to other groups. And there is a proportionate there is a statistic that says it is a higher percentage seen something in women than in men. Overall, they say 70% of all people at some point in their life will experience imposter syndrome, but it is very highly proportionate to women who experience them. And also, it's something that high achieving women, people we would consider high achieving in society, for example, um, that are experiencing this. And I know that I'm sure you see this as well as me, but I often see this within my clients. I have clients that are extremely impressive beings. I'm really in awe of their work, everything they've accomplished professionally, how they conduct themselves, everything that they do. I'm really inspired by them, and yet they're coming to me and talking about imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
And obviously, as a coach, I can't jump back at them, but I sometimes just say, "Are you crazy? Do you see how awesome you are? Why do you feel like this?" Because I know I've gone through it, I've felt it too. Um, but it is interesting to see on the outside people that I think are amazing that are struggling with imposter syndrome.
Yeah, and this is when we were talking about themes for the series, right? We brainstormed the whole list, but imposter syndrome was like, no doubt this is going to go to the top because
Yeah.
that's what we see most of all. And also, I think we're privileged as coaches. People do open up to us and they talk about the imposter syndrome. And in our real life, when we see people, we can't even guess that what they might be experiencing and
Yeah.
so on. So
Well, it's this fake it till you make it. So people are trying to fake it, but they don't feel, but there is that fear constantly that they're not enough.
yeah.
And I hear it in different ways. So oftentimes, when I try to even compliment my clients and I say, well, look, you did amazing on this project. And they say, oh, yeah, but it was a team effort. Or I say, oh, look at this. Look at the KPIs that you reached, that you reach all these KPIs and uh, you excelled, over excelled. And they say, oh, yeah, but I just got lucky. Like it was good timing in the market. They're always attributing it to something else.
Someone else, yes. Or it was
Yeah.
like I was in the right place in the right time, and
Yeah.
I'm sure this happens to you as well. And you just say, right. And another person in the right place in the right time would have just missed the opportunity, but you jumped at it. So yeah.
Exactly.
I
And that's the
think
thing.
that's
It's realizing that, okay, maybe luck can play a very, very, very tiny, small percentage, or the timing can play a small percentage, but to some extent, you have to act on things. And depending on how you act, makes a difference of what comes to light and what comes out of what the outcomes essentially.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think that it's one of these things. If you're feeling this, my the I think the main important takeaway that I want you to understand, like joining us in this talk, is that if you're feeling this way, it's not true. Tell it to shut up. It's this evil voice in your head. No, but in all seriousness, imposter syndrome, this is what it feels like. This is what it will make you feel like, but it's not necessarily true. And it's something that you do have to actively work on. And us as coaches, I know Olga and I talk a lot about mindset, and we talk a lot about changing perspectives on things. And it's something you have to actively challenge. The moment you realize that you're doubting yourself and your capabilities, and feeling like you don't belong somewhere, you you should address it. You should address it head on, and not give in to those feelings, but address it and say, hey, where's this coming from? and
Okay. Let's
and
talk about it. I like it, Susan. So
yeah, exactly.
we tell clients you should address it right away. How? What's your
Yeah,
go-to technique?
yeah, and so this is what I wanted to, like, first, I think addressing is the number one thing. So realizing what it is. So when it shows up, um these feelings, realize it's imposter syndrome and it's not something that's actually true. And then analyzing where these thoughts and feelings come from, and then trying different strategies. I know Olga and I have several different strategies that we propose to clients that are struggling with imposter syndrome. There's some I know that work really well for Olga and I that we use all the time for ourselves, but there's some that also work for our clients and work better for them. So I know that we really want to kind of share some of those with you. What would you say, Olga? Do you want to tell us a bit about one of your favorite ones?
So my most favorite go-to is I ask the clients to, when they come with a recurrent imposter syndrome and they say like, oh, no, of course I can't do it, da da da. I just ask them to put a list of their achievements together. And I ask them to go for big and small, doesn't matter, just put a list together. And most of the time, I can hear the cogs in their brains go, no, 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 what achievements? And I always think, oh, this is not that difficult. And I'll share a personal story. I was asked 2 weeks ago, I was asked by my coach, and it was almost like boom, right into your face, your same strategy, right, right into your face. What are your achievements, Olga? And all of a sudden I felt like a cobbler without shoes because I haven't done this exercise for a while. Last time I did it was 10 years ago. And I looked at my coach and I said, "Hmm, raising my kids, but I haven't done it alone, right? Their father had a role to play in it, and like everything I was coming up with was but." And yeah, I took it away. I sat with it for a week, and I actually forced myself to write down my achievements. And once you meet your new self at the other end, and then you look back at, oh my God, I've done so much. Now it's on paper. Now it's evidence. It really works for boosting self-confidence, and self-confidence is the only antidote to the imposter syndrome. What works for you, Susan? Oh, you're gonna ask me a question again.
Yes, because
Yeah, I
now I'm
can
really
see in
no,
that face.
yeah, because now I'm really curious because I'm just thinking if I use this strategy, it wouldn't work for me, I think, because
Okay.
writing down my successes, I would probably start like you. Well, I didn't do that alone. I did that with a team. So then I wouldn't see it as just my alone success. So then I wouldn't want to claim it. And then what, how do you get this idea? Like, is that really an achievement? Should I write this down? Because, you know, it really was just about timing. Because one example, um, I am originally American. I've been in Europe for 10 years. And then when people say, "Look, you moved to Europe, and made it work, and
And you
you
learn the
moved to,
language.
yeah, like a new language, new country." And I always think, yeah, but I didn't really do it alone. Like, I didn't come on my own. Like, my partner was here. I joined my partner here. So I wasn't really independent. Like, I had help in the beginning. So lots of people compliment me on this, you know, starting in a new country, living somewhere different. Whereas I never tend to take credit for that because I say, yeah, but I didn't really do it like other people I've seen who do it alone. So I'm thinking, I'm sure other people listening in struggle with this as well. So how do you decide to, do you not put those on the list? Are you only writing down things that you really feel like you can claim? And if that's the case, was it hard to come up with this list? And also, what do you do with these ones that, I don't know, that other people may see as a success for you, but you're touting it as timing or someone else helped or et cetera, et cetera.
Really good question. And that's why I say I can almost hear the rusty cogs going in the heads of my clients. And I could hear this going for myself. And you struggle first couple of days, but then you go, for example, same thing. I'm an immigrant. I'm from Belarus. I live in the UK. And I hear so often people saying, wow, what an achievement. You know, you've made your life in the UK. And I'm like, oh yeah, but you know, I got moved with the company and you know, I already knew the language and no, no, no. And then and then I remembered in this thinking, I didn't put it on first. And then I remembered I met a friend of mine from 30 years before who has lived those 30 years in Japan. I met her in Japan and I thought, oh my God, she really made it. Like, imagine going to an unknown country and learning the language. I was
And
like,
Japan, which is very, very different from
yes,
Western
but
culture.
but then
So
if you think about it, well, that's sort of the, the same step she made, right? So why am I so impressed by someone else, but I forget to acknowledge? And I think that another important word is acknowledge what I've done. So, and then you start putting, okay, I agree with myself. Maybe, just maybe, I can put that on. But then it kind of it warms up the muscle and you start going. And I really like Katerina here says um, before an interview, you set yourself 2 minutes on a timer and you do the exercise, write down all the achievements you can think of. That's another technique. So don't give yourself the infinite amount of time to think of your achievements, but treat it as a sports exercise. How many can you come up with? That's
yeah,
an interesting technique, especially for those who are competitive and who like this sort of the stress and pressure of timing. That's a good one.
yeah, I think it's as well. And I think it depends on the people as well. That's what I always try to tell with clients. What works best for me may not work best for you. That's why we have a lot of different tactics to try. So if you feel maybe like it's too much to sit down several days and think about it, maybe just trying to go as fast as you can, writing down as many as you can in that time so that maybe that's better because you're not overthinking it.
Yeah. What's
Um,
yours? What's your exercise?
so mine, I think, is more so I there's several things I do. So one thing is I'm really big about addressing it for what it is. If I start realizing there's self-doubt there, I realize the negative self-talk comes in. Like, "Oh yeah, but you're not that great. There's other people who do this and that have more experience than you or that, you know, for some reason I think are more impressive." And with this, I have to, I think it's important to catch yourself, because when you start this negative self-talk in your head, it can expand into being bigger than it really is. So that's why I like to kind of stop it early and I say, okay, wait. Why am I being down on myself? Why am I taking this so negatively? What if I reframe this? So then I say, instead of saying that someone else is better, maybe let's just look at what I've done that is great. And it can be something small. So I mean, I will look at it like, I helped a friend yesterday. So like, I've done something nice, and I'm doing something for like someone I care about. And so I said, yeah, this person may have gone to Japan, integrated into a culture that's way more impressive, I may think, on the surface. But, I've done equally nice and good things, maybe not at all related, but that still contribute to my worth and my value, and is in alignment, I think, with who I am as a person. So I try to look at the things that I've done, even if I maybe don't classify them as an achievement that I, helped a friend, but I'm looking that the things that I'm doing is in alignment with my values and myself. And that's ultimately how I want to live. So I try to take this pressure off of, I don't know, like OKRs, KPIs, these kind of objectives that we think about in the workplace. Did I really set smart goals and achieve them? I just try to think differently. I try to reframe and think differently, and I take the negative to a positive, because I think that how we talk to ourselves matters. And someone once told me, would you talk to a friend how you talk to yourself?
That's a very good one.
And I said, no, of course not. I'm absolutely horrible with myself. The things that I
Why are
tell
you treating
myself.
yourself this way? Exactly.
Yeah, and the things that I tell myself, or the things that I allow myself to believe, is not at all what I would ever want a friend to hear from me.
Mm.
And then they said, yeah, exactly. This is my point. You should talk to yourself how you would talk to your friend that you love. And
But
so I try to always reframe and think that way. If I have this negative self-talk, wait, would I say this to a friend?
mm, I love
Um,
that. Can I add to what you're saying? And again, it's in the same theme as we started from the beginning. Not all of the exercises. There's no one exercise that's going to work for all. So it's like you need to go through and pick and choose what works for you. So what Susan is talking about is a very sort of reflective exercise, and it requires an ability to catch yourself in the moment and to be able to reframe.
and it takes practice, right? Like, it's not
Exactly.
like all of a sudden you get it and it's easy.
No. And then it when you don't practice it, it goes away,
Yeah.
unfortunately, right?
It's a muscle, 100%.
Yeah. And so, and maybe I'm more for those who are more practical or like the practical things. Another way of reframing is once you catch yourself in, um, oh, I'm bad, or it's like, no, I will never be able to do this job, right? It requires too much strategic thinking. Let's take my example, right? Okay, so you write it down. You know me, I like physical things, so write it down, 2 columns. You're not strategic enough. Okay. What else? You're not fit for this job. And then you look at it and you examine it. Is it a fact or is it your thought or sort of
Like a feeling or something. I
a
don't know.
feeling? Exactly. And then in the other column, you write down the facts. Well, what are the facts? What do you know? Like in my case, for 10 years, I've been doing strategies and I've always been complimented for being strategic. Where did that go then? I didn't invent that, so it's a fact. I've done it. Or things like that. So it's separating feelings and judgments from facts. And any time the self-doubt comes up, my advice to some of the clients who work with lists well is kind of write down, what the judgments are, what the feelings are, and what the facts are.
Kind of going back to like what's judgments, feelings, and kind of what facts are. Um, because you also were mentioning in your example that you're seen as strategic because you've been doing this. Being seen as a certain way, I think, can be super helpful as well. Is when you're really lost and you really are struggling to think about achievements that you've accomplished. Invite people around you to tell you. And usually, when I tell clients this, they say, "What? You just want me to go ask people in my life what
I
I'm good
know.
at?"
How scary. I don't want to go,
Yeah,
I'm
or
my
they
little
say,
house.
That's strange. I'm not just going to, ask my colleague what I'm good at in the workplace." So usually, I tell them, I say, feel free to blame me. I said, say it's a coaching exercise where you're doing professional coaching to grow as a professional. And this is one of your homework assignments, is that you have to ask them to say what you're good at. And I said, pay attention to what they say and make a list of it. And I know that there have been clients that have been very shocked at some of the outcomes of what people have said. And it's not uniquely to colleagues. You could ask colleagues, you could ask managers, you could ask your partner in life, you could ask friends, you can ask family, because they'll give you even different perspectives because they see you in different areas of your life. And so you may get completely different responses from one person that you would another. But I know this has helped clients as well to reframe. Sometimes they think they're not that good at something, whereas most people that they asked this question to said that same exact thing that they thought they weren't good at.
So on that, I wanted to build on that because yes, indeed, when you ask your clients to go and ask, especially if you're in a corporate environment, it's like really 360. Everyone is tired of this. So
Yeah,
what I
360 feedbacks.
yeah, what I usually ask is same thing. Tell them your coach has asked it, so that's a safe space. And another safe approach is, and I've used it when I was contracting and I was changing roles and companies very often. When I was writing my goodbye note, I would always ask people to, can you please do me a favor and reply to this email with just 3 words. 3 words that you associate with me.
Hmm.
And then I would collect all of these words and I would put them into the word cloud. And then the ones that are mentioned most often come up bold and clear right into your face. So going back to my example, because it's so fresh, I went back to the words that I collected when I left my very last corporate
That
job.
was going to be my question. I was really curious
I
what they
did. I
are,
did it. I did it the day before yesterday because I never put it into the word cloud, which is again, I did the exercise, but I didn't
but
follow
you didn't
through,
do the
right?
visual part. Yeah.
So I put it into the word cloud and the word professional, knowledgeable came like as the most often used ones. The strategy was there as well. And so what I do usually with this, I print it out, put it in my home office on the wall. So every time I need a bit of a confidence boost, and it is you can't say no, this is not me because it's been externally validated and it's almost statistically correct, right?
Yeah.
So then you look at it and you open up your shoulders and it's like, well, yeah, that's what I am because other people have told me this and you embrace it and you feel it. So that's here you go. That's another idea for you, the word cloud.
Hmm.
And people actually love doing this because you ask them 3 words. It's
It's
not like
easy. It's
a
not like
huge
it's not difficult
360.
for
Yeah,
people. Yeah.
yeah.
Hmm.
What about, what's let's give a couple of more. What do you use?
Yeah. So another thing, kind of going back a little bit to your idea of writing achievements, except it's not achievements. I break it down really super easy. Um, I have quite a bit of clients over the years that always think that they're not doing enough. It's really from this side of things. I need to do more. I need to produce more. I need to be more successful. I need to be, I need to achieve way more than I'm achieving now. Um, And mind you, personally, it's not about coaching, but personally, I think they're already highly, like, they're highly accomplished individuals in their own right, but they're still struggling with this not feeling like enough. And so I tell them essentially keep a work journal. Um, this is what I did particularly for myself when I was in a job that I just didn't feel good about. Um, that I started keeping a work journal because I realized I didn't feel like I was doing anything worthwhile. So at the end of the workday, 5 minutes before the end of the workday, I pulled out just a notebook and I wrote down everything I did that day. So had a 1 hour meeting, um, responded to 10 emails, whatever it may be, little, big. I just put a bullet point and I put the task I did. Bullet point, put a task. And it helps over the long term because when you go back, you can actually see all the different things you did. Because sometimes our mind plays tricks on us and thinks we wasted time, we didn't do enough that day. When actually, when you go back through a journal that you're keeping, that doesn't have to be time consuming or well written. I just put bullet point format, just everything I did, less than 5 minutes every day.
I like
Um,
that.
and when I went back through, I said, wow, I actually really did a lot at this job. Um, because when
Lovely.
I left that job and I started looking back through, and I occasionally would look back through when I was working as well, but it was extremely noticeable to me when I started going from the start to the finish, and I realized how much I did. And then I think that puts into perspective as well that you, to some extent, it is has to do with capabilities and it has to do with what you know and your knowledge that you were able to do all of these different things.
Just to build on that, as we said, it's really, I love talking with other coaches because we have similar instruments, but then we modify them for other audiences.
Yeah.
So here's one that I picked up from a peer of mine who has done a lot of contracting, and for contracting you constantly bid for projects,
For
and you need,
projects, yeah.
and look, I've been working in corporates for 25 plus years. You forget all the projects that you've done, right? And
Yeah.
say, like, I've done comms, I've done change, and there's a change role, and I'm like, yeah, but I haven't really done change recently for a project. I had to sit down and write up all of my change projects. And I mean, 2 pages wasn't enough for sort of short blurbs. So what this peer of mine does after each project, like, an assignment, he writes up the most projects, sort of the chunkiest projects, and he writes up in using the STAR model: situation, task, achievement, action, result.
Action and result, yeah.
And he does a slide on it. So he now has a deck of around 30 slides. And then before the interview, he leaves through the slides. So that's a quick preparation, but also a very good confidence booster. But also as a bonus, when he applies for projects, he picks and chooses, the projects that work for particularly that role, and does
Mm,
it as a, rather than do an AI generated cover letter, right? He just
yeah.
submits those slides, and he doesn't feel like he's an imposter when he applies because he can back it up. We all can back it up, but he already has it ready, so he doesn't spend time on the self-doubt. So
Yeah.
here's another idea as well: sort of run your portfolio, um, and constantly keep updating it, because your CV is not enough. You don't write details in there and so on.
Yeah. This is interesting though, kind of on this. So we have Katerina in the chat who said, yeah, having a shine folder where you put
I
all the well
love
done
that.
emails. Yeah, where you put all well done emails in there and you go over it regularly so that you are reminding yourself essentially. And she
I,
also mentions about third-party validation, and
Mhm.
it's quite interesting. Now we talk more about AI, and Katerina mentions ChatGPT, and she said, if you put in your CV into ChatGPT, you go and then you list what you think your limitations are. And then you ask, based on your CV, you ask ChatGPT if it's true or not, if it's a fact. And ChatGPT will tell you just simply based on the facts and not on feelings. Because I think that's kind of interesting, this idea, because it is true that often us as humans, we're making decisions and ideas based on feelings, that I feel like I'm not good enough for this role, or I feel like I can't do this, or I feel like they chose me, but there's been a mistake.
Yeah, I love the external validation and the whole ChatGPT thing. Have you tried asking ChatGPT based on the history of your work with ChatGPT? You put the cue based on our history of interaction. What have you learned about me that I don't know?
Hmm.
Try it. It was the biggest confidence booster for me as well. It just kept giving me compliments. I think the algorithm is this way, so
Oh, so
it hasn't changed. Keep
you
trying
taught
this.
your ChatGPT to compliment you.
Yeah, and you go, well, like even if the machine says it, based on my interactions, why not? But joking aside about third-party validation, you can catch up with your friend, for example, who you worked with but are not longer working with, and you say, look, if you're comfortable to admit, to say, look, I'm having a bit of a self-confidence low at the moment. If I were to ask you to help me boost my self-confidence, what would you say I've done that I am devaluing or sort of
Hmm.
degrading. I did it yesterday because
Mhm.
I'm still in the process for this job, and I thought, oh, I need another boost, and I'm going to use all the instruments I know. So I called my wonderful colleague from my previous job, and I said, look, I'm feeling really down about this whole strategy thing. It's like, can you talk me through stuff that you felt was that I was doing it? And he looks at me and he said, you must be joking. And then he just started, and he reminded me of the projects that I've done, but I really didn't think it was that important or that serious. So third party validation, soak it in, and then but try to keep it and inside, sort of compartmentalize and keep it so that your self-confidence doesn't go away.
And I think it's, yeah, and I think it's really important to mention as well, it shouldn't be weird or uncomfortable to reach out to people in your life and ask these things. I know some people, I know clients often tell me, it sounds like I'm fishing for compliments. And I said, no, you're just essentially asking for a different view. With
Absolutely.
ourselves, we only have this one view of ourselves. So it's hard to see from a different perspective. So when we ask, we can see things from a different perspective. So I say, look at it as you're asking because it's a learning opportunity to see yourself in a different light.
That's a very good one. Yes, that's a way to go around the this feeling like it's artificial. I'm
Mm.
doing this just to bask in the compliments. Um, there's another one. So we talked about the third party validation, but there's one more, and I don't think we are disciplined in it. But I think we should become disciplined, is celebrating our own successes.
Mm.
Once something has happened, and most of the time, because we worked so hard for it, we go and we don't celebrate. And I think it's
Mm.
it's it's in our own hands. And if we celebrate, we're doing ourselves a favor because it gets imprinted in our memory. And next time when we need to recall it, we recall it better. And there's a number of techniques that I suggest to people, especially if you have kids. That's a really good conversation around the table, around the dinner table every day. Go
Mm.
around and ask, what are you celebrating today? You would People would come back to me and they say, oh my God, I thought that there's nothing to celebrate, but now my kids love it. They even they ask me like, Mom, why are we not doing it today? So
Oh, that's
that's a
wonderful.
way. I had a client who took it even further. They apparently it was an old tradition in the family, well forgotten, and then they reintroduced it. They had this large red, almost like a placemat plate, and it was red. So for the dinner, whoever had something huge to celebrate would be served on this red placemat. So it's like, you see what we're doing there? Everyone is involved. You remember being celebrated. You know, imprinted into your long-term memory. What's not to like? Plus, it creates a wonderful sort of family union feeling.
Mm. I love that, because also it's also a little bit of accountability as well, because you're focusing on it. You're focusing on celebrating these successes, and you know that's expected of you when you come to the table. Um, my coach that I'm working with, every Thursday when we meet, she goes, "All right, what's one thing you're proud of that you worked on or that you achieved this week?" And in the beginning, I would say, "Oh crap, I don't know." And then I would just be racking my brain to figure out something. But now I know this is the first thing we start our session with every Thursday. And I say, "Yeah, so what is it that I'm proud of?" And it causes me to reflect, because I need to reflect before she asked me this question. And then I started realizing, oh, well, there's a few things actually that I can be proud of, that I worked on or that I've achieved this week. Um, so I think it's good if you have a regular practice, like you said, with a coach or around your dinner table in the evening, or just with your friends, because then this helps that you are regularly putting this into practice.
Yes. Remember when we met with you at um, Business Accelerator, and every meeting we had, our mentor would start with, "What are you celebrating today?" And I
Yep.
remember when I just joined, I was getting ready to come and moan and decide, this is not working, that is not working, how do I do it, right? And she all of a sudden, every time she's like, "What are you celebrating today?" And in the beginning, it was like the two, for me, it was like the two opposing energies clashing. But then with time, it really worked for me, because, you know, you open up your shoulders, you know, you celebrate things, and so on. Speaking about opening up the shoulders, I know we're almost coming to the end of it. So what we, to the end of the hour, what we talked about was how to boost our self-confidence. What are the ways to create this long-term self-confidence? I wanted to stop and talk just a little bit about how can we boost our confidence in the moment? How can we kind of nip the imposter in the butt, so to say, and say, shut up when we're going somewhere, right? And what I usually recommend is work with your body, you know, go
Yeah.
do a power pose, you know, or some women suggested under one of my posts, put red lipstick on, if that's something that helps you feel the confidence, you know. Put for example, my daughter is a ballroom dancer, and she feels the most confident on the dancing floor. So when she's doing interviews, I suggested that she puts her dancing shoes on, because no one sees what shoes I'm wearing, but she knows that gives her confidence. So little things like that. You know, I have a client who likes the metaphor of wearing her confidence as a scarf. So we talk with her when she goes to the meetings. She spends some time visualizing how she puts the scarf on. So little things like that, and they don't work for all, but there's always one that will work for you. So my recommendation is to think this way.
Yeah, I think this is the big thing. It's not trying one of these techniques and saying, "Oh, it doesn't work out. Like, I'm still suffering with imposter syndrome." This is not something necessarily I think can just be cured. It's something that can come up at different points in your life. So maybe you felt this, I don't know, 10 years ago, and maybe you won't feel it for another 10 years. Or maybe you felt it last week and you're going to again feel it this week. Um, but it's important to try different strategies. And even then, maybe a strategy you try now will not work next time. So it's really important to have different tools in your toolbox to bring out and to try. I know we've given quite a bit of different tactics. But I saw something specifically about coming to imposter syndrome while job hunting, and what exercise would you advise for overcoming it to fast forward in job hunting? And we've given lots of exercises, but I think it's important. I always try to tell people, any people that are job hunting, to always try to rethink going into a job interview and the process, because we often look at it like we are the job seeker, this is the people hiring, so that they are in a sense over us on the hierarchy. So you have to cater to them, you have to make sure to impress them, you have to do all of this extra work in hopes that they will see your value and hire you. And especially when you're already self-doubting that, am I enough, because there's lots of other great candidates. Try to look at it when you're going in for interviews is that you're on equal playing field. They're a human, you're a human. You're no better or less than the other. And you're just going in to have a conversation. You two are going to have a conversation just to learn more about the role, to learn more about each other. And a job situation, in a job interview, it should be you sussing them out as much as they're sussing you out to see if you're a good fit. Because at the end of the day, you don't want to work in an environment that isn't a fit or in alignment with your values or how you want to work, and what you want to achieve in your professional life. So I always say, try to start from this angle first, reframing how you go into an interview, and reframing how you see the people interviewing you. So instead of this, it's this. And then try to implement some of these techniques and exercises that we've mentioned before when it comes to looking differently at yourself and the situation.
That's a beautiful wrap up, Susan. I think we're running out of time already, but before we stop, we wanted to ask you to either comment here or to send us a message to say, look, loved it, hated it. What would you see? What topics would you like us to spend time on in the next sessions? Because we're planning to have these meetings every month. It was a lot of fun, Susan. Thank you. It was a great
Yeah.
idea.
Well, Olga, we could always talk for days about coaching and about different situations women are facing in the workplace. So I think that this is always lovely. But just like Olga said, please, by all means, you can write in the chat what you'd like to see that we talk about next, or feel free to mention any other follow-ups to imposter syndrome, because we really would love that the conversation continues, because we want to continue to support each other through this, because we are aware it's something that touches so many women, and it's something that can really impact our opportunities if we allow it to get to us. So feel free to continue the discussion in the chat. We're happy to keep engaging with you all, and by all means, write what you would like to hear from us about next, and you're welcome to message us as well. And yeah, we look forward to being in contact and speaking with you all. And thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Bye.